Hello, this is Anthony. Let's walk and talk. Welcome to Guatemala. We're going to do our video up here this morning. I think you can see in the background there are, I'm trying to help you see some of the volcanoes in the background. Guatemala, beautiful. Guatemala City is a beautiful city. People have been incredible. I've really enjoyed my time here as I work my way north. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about why it is so important to heal and learn to love yourself after a breakup. And we're going to just jump right into this because I think there are aspects of healing that sometimes I think people are hesitant to want to choose or experience because they essentially fear what comes on the other side of it. Either they feel like there was something wrong with themselves, or the ego will take over and project blame onto the other person. Remember when we had our discussion about projection versus reflection, and essentially, it's important to understand that any time that a relationship fails, it's not always that the relationship, that there were problems in the relationship. Sometimes it's just strictly that, two people weren't compatible and the relationship didn't work. However, if the relationship lasted for an extended period of time, say over a year overall, the likelihood is that there was probably unhealed trauma on both ends that that kind of created that situation where there was a break. Again, it's not to make a judgment as to that's good or bad. There's no judgment on it. It's just a reflection of the reality that exists anytime a longer term relationship comes to a conclusion. So the reason why it is so important to heal and to love yourself post-relationship is because it's important to process the feelings that come up. It's important to understand which of those feelings are from you, which of those feelings are projected from the other person, and which essentially, as we talked about before, are the reflection of unhealed trauma within you. The value in healing that is that as you begin to heal these things, then you less and less will you attract partners that reflect those unhealed portions back to you. So it'll put you in a position where you will start to attract healthier relationships. And again, remember, we've talked about attachment style. From an attachment style perspective, it's important to understand that everyone has their own journey from that perspective. However, attachment style isn't fixed. Attachment style isn't your personality. It is just the coping mechanisms for how you interact in a personality. And so as you begin to analyze and allow the feelings to come up and heal from the loss of a relationship, you begin to start to see, let's just call it the consistencies, potentially that have arisen in many or multiple past relationships, and how, again, you're starting to see themes of actions that you took versus actions that they took, how you interacted versus how they interacted, how you communicated versus how they communicated, so on and so forth. But really where I want to go with this is the importance of healing and learning to love yourself and why it's so valuable. You see, some attachment styles are more apt to do what they call monkey branching, or essentially what they do is they jump out of one relationship and into another. A lot of people will call that, from my age, we call that a rebound. And the purpose and the reason why some people will rebound, and usually it's specific attachment styles, more leaning towards the dismissive, is because they have a shame wound and an abandonment wound, and those are difficult for them to address. So what they do is they project that the relationship wasn't the right relationship. They don't do any introspection, and they try to stuff the emotions that for a normal person should normally come up at the end of a relationship, especially one that was an extended period of time, like I said, over a year. And they'll just try to project that onto another partner. They'll just try to jump in and allow those, these feelings of, what they consider love, or these feelings of desire and attraction to come up with another person. However, as most of us know, those rebound relationships never work, and it's a very high percentage that they do not work. And part of the reason why is because that person hasn't processed the the emotions from the last relationship. They haven't taken accountability and looked at their actions as to why the relationship failed, and they've taken no steps to try to heal from those from those issues that came up in the relationship that caused it to reach its ending. So loving thyself. Why is loving yourself important? Why is healing important? Well, for a couple of reasons. When you get to a point where you're willing to be introspective, you're willing to take accountability, you're willing to kind of look in the mirror and go, I recognize these traits that keep popping up in relationships, and I choose to take the time to heal the wounds in me that keep causing me to attract partners to reflect those to me. Once you start doing that and you start to truly love self, and I mean truly love self, unconditionally love self. You see, ego says I love self. Everyone says they love themselves, but the reality is all you have to do is be honest and take a look at your life and how you treat yourself to know whether you actually do love yourself or not. I mean, are you locked in addictions? Are you locked in unhealthy patterns? How do you speak to yourself? How do you view your life? How do you view yourself? How do you view your relationships? I'm not talking about the mask you wear and what you project to other people. I'm talking about when you are sitting by yourself in a room and you're the only person you have to answer to is self, or when you look in a mirror, what do you see? Do you see a reflection of beauty, or do you see the mask that you're trying to convince yourself that exists there? And why is it important to address this? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because let's say you take a period of time, let's say it's 6 months, it's a year, a couple of years before you choose to start dating, or maybe even you meet someone and you choose to enter a relationship. Here's what can happen, and here's what often happens if you don't do the work to heal and you don't do the work to accept and love yourself. What ends up happening is the first person that comes along that offers you love, you'll accept it, because it's the equivalent, as I heard the other day someone explain, it's the equivalent of as if you're walking through the desert and someone offers you a glass of water. You don't look at the water to examine the water to think whether or not it's healthy for you or it's clean or whatnot. You just immediately start drinking the water because you are so thirsty that you just want to quench your thirst with the water. Well, the example that they gave, which I thought was an amazing example, is exactly the same with love. If you don't take the time to heal and to love yourself, what'll happen is the first person that comes to you that offers you love, you will drink that love up like it's the best thing you've ever had. Not even examining to whether this is the right person, that this is healthy, that this is something that you should be entering into. And you're going to continue the loop that you continue to find yourself in. When you meet a new person, you get into a relationship ends. You meet a new person, you get into a relationship ends. Because you haven't properly taken the time to vet them and be discerning as to whether this is the right person for you. You haven't stood in your power to really try to get to know them, to see, the things of, are we compatible, or is this just lust? Do we have similar desires for our future? Are we both in a growth mindset? How do they handle conflict? How do you handle conflict? Are you compatible from that aspect? Really, these are important things to understand about self, and actually about any potential partner that you choose to get into relationship with. And let's be fair, this takes time. And I'm not talking about within a month or 2 months or a couple of, 3 months. This can take 4 or 5 months. And you also have to be willing to ask all the right questions. There are a lot of difficult questions that people don't want to ask because they feel like, well, if I ask this question, this is going to push this person away. Well, the problem with that perspective is it may push the person away. But let's be honest. Are you afraid it's going to push the person away because you're afraid that the answer to the question is not going to be the answer that you need to hear? Give you an example. Let's say having a question early on, like, what are you looking for in a relationship? It's one a lot of people stay away from. The reason they stay away from it is because they don't want to hear the answer. They think, oh, this person, I'm attracted to them. They're intelligent. They check a lot of boxes. Maybe they check all the boxes. So I don't want to ask the person if they're looking for something long term because that might scare the person away. Well, let's be fair. If by asking the question, it's going to scare the person away, the likelihood is that person is either A, emotionally unavailable, or B, that they're not looking for anything more than a situationship or a little fun. And so at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, who are you hurting more by not asking the question? Are you hurting yourself more because you're going to become more enmeshed with this person over time in hopes that you'll manipulate them to choose you, that they might change their mind? Or are you finding yourself in a position where, I would rather just know up front whether, what this person's intentions are? Because let's be fair, there are many times in a relationship where someone will choose you for the moment, but they're not choosing you for the long term. You're the best fit for the time, but you don't fit what their needs and desires are. And your desire to be chosen overrides your desire to choose whether or not this is something you should become enmeshed in. And that, as we all know, can cause a great amount of hurt and pain later on in your life. Because the more enmeshed you become with someone who doesn't share the same desires in a relationship as you, the more you're going to become enmeshed in that relationship, the less likely that they're going to change their mind in the relationship, and the more likelihood that it's going to have an outcome that is not one that is pleasant. It's going to be one that potentially can cause you, more hurt. So, I feel like asking these questions, and these are not necessarily first date questions, but certainly early on in the dating process, asking these questions is important. It's important to start kind of being discerning and vetting whether the person that you've been attracted to or that you've attracted in, whether they're the dirty glass of water after a long walk through the desert, or whether they're the crystal clear and healthy glass of water you should be putting into your body and consuming. I know that can go a lot of different directions, but that's just the best way it came out. So what say you? How do you feel about that? Do you feel like this is something that helps you and is applicable in your life? And how have you navigated these in the past? I'm curious. As always, until I talk to you again, peace, love, light. I hope you have the most amazing day.